It's the Opperman Report. And now...
The Ochelli Effect is sponsored by WallStreetWindow.com. Listeners like you.
And now, the most underrated voice in all media, Chuck Ochelli.
22nd day of October 2023, allegedly, according to that thing we call a calendar. And this is the Ochelli Effect. Hopefully you were looking for the show, but if not, and you just stumbled across it, welcome. Anyway, it's a Sunday. It's weird. I don't usually broadcast on a Sunday. I don't usually record on a Sunday. That is often my day off. But when I had a chance to sit down with an old friend, I said, yeah, let's do this on a Sunday. Ed Opperman, okay? If you haven't heard of the Opperman Report, welcome to the internet, because he's been around a while. And he's been on my show many times. That's good. That's perfect. Excellent grammar there on my part. Anyway, Ed Opperman, private investigator, podcaster, a fighter against the New World Order, his announcements say on his radio show, I think still. Ed, first off, man, how you doing on this fine Sunday afternoon?
Oh, yeah, I'm still using that same intro that we recorded 10 years ago. And I am doing very well on this Sunday afternoon. Thank you for working around my schedule. I had to get some stuff done today. I interviewed this kid, Quinn Mitchell. You might have seen him. He's 15 years old. And he's that kid that asked a question to Ron DeSantis, and DeSantis got all pissed off at him and kicked him out of his rally over there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I interviewed him this afternoon, so I had some free time this afternoon for you.
Great. Well, you're going to put that up on Patreon, because I know you got the active Patreon over there where listeners can go sign up, and I see Opperman Report releases all the time. You hear squeaking behind me, by the way. There's a new little batch of puppies that might chime in during the show. My apologies, but I can't leave them out with the other dogs because they were just born like a week and a half ago. Anyways, just telling you what the noise is. Yeah, and you have it's Patreon/Opperman Report, right? Or is it something else?
No, that's it. Opperman Report at Patreon. I got up there some exclusive. Everything we put out Monday to Friday on AM/FM radio, you can find there commercial free. 5 hours of content a week, guaranteed.
Nice.
Then I do some exclusive stuff. I just interviewed May Pang. It's my second interview with May Pang, John Lennon's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah. John Lennon had a wild weekend, the Lost Weekend. I remember hearing about that on the Howard Stern show years ago, because I wasn't a big Beatles fan, but I have to confess I'm a recovering Stern listener from many years ago. Have you listened to him lately, by the way? I got to ask you about
I just listened to him today. I was in the car listening to him today. Yeah, I just did a show with the Radio Gunk, who does a whole show about the Howard Stern, too.
Man, he has definitely turned into something different since he's been on Sirius FM, over the past, decade now. More than a decade, I think he's been on Sirius, right?
Oh, yeah, easily more. He talks about, the loss of his mother. His mother's like in a home, and the loss of his father. Very mundane, like brushing his teeth, he's very isolated from the world and just talking about like an old man just rambling.
He always was. Then he turns around and decides to scream at people about, I don't care, drop dead if you don't get a vaccine. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, my God, And I'm certain that given the circumstance on the world stage, he's right now probably screaming about how Israel needs to wipe Palestine off the planet, which I don't even want to discuss with you, but, because I'm sick of hearing about it. And, look, I know it's a pivotal thing. It's important, yes, indeed. But I'm talking to Ed Opperman today. I want to relax a little bit and talk about other stuff like May Pang, because the May Pang story is pretty wild. Now, I was always fascinated by this weird Yoko Ono kind of circumstance. Like, how did she land a rock star? She was an avant-garde artist and all that crap. Well, even apparently the guy who wants to pose naked on an album cover with her might have gotten sick of her temporarily, or she gave him permission, I think, to go run away with May Pang temporarily. Did you get into that story with May Pang?
I interviewed May Pang about 5 years ago, and we did like a nice 2-hour interview. And there were things she's hesitant to talk about, in this newest film, The Lost Weekend, A Love Story. Okay, first of all, it's a great film. I recommend you go to IMDb, look it up, and you could buy it streaming. There's a lot of video footage on there you haven't seen before. And she fleshes out the story of the Lost Weekend, a lot of details that I haven't heard before. And also the producers, and Julian Lennon is in it quite a bit. I had no idea the depths of the relationship she had until this day with Julian Lennon and with Julian Lennon's mother. Now, in the film, they really get into Yoko. Everybody's afraid of Yoko. I'm afraid of Yoko myself, okay? Everyone's afraid of Yoko. I was going to interview this guy, okay, and he got arrested.
Wait a second. You are afraid of Yoko Ono. Now look, when I was running bootleg music out of New York City, I was a little nervous about Yoko Ono myself, because she would literally show up with people at stores like on St. Mark's Place and whatever else, and shut places down and get people like literally arrested over bootleg albums if it contained anything related to John Lennon. So I can understand being nervous if you're in that position. What in the hell would make Ed Opperman nervous regarding Yoko Ono?
Well, I just don't want to get dragged into court, you know. And like I said, I was going to have this guy, I think his name is Senor or something, I forget his name. Okay. But he had just gotten out of prison for selling some John Lennon material that he wasn't supposed to have. And right before I was going to do an interview with him, he got rearrested. So wow. I don't just want to get dragged into Yoko Ono stuff, but the documentary film was very much more open and liberal about talking about Yoko Ono and the hypnotism that caused John Lennon to go back to Yoko Ono. But when I tried to talk, first of all, it was right before the film was to come out, so it was one of those all-day press events where she was sitting there in the room taking interviews with everybody. So they were all going to give me 20 minutes.
And according to what I see online, I mean, they just released this film on the 13th of this month. So, I mean, this is fresh. And
I interviewed her like on the 10th. I was it was only like 12 people that day that interviewed her too. So they only gave me 20 minutes. And then they had some technical problems over there, so it was a little bit late. And I said, hey, listen, I'm still getting 20 minutes, right? And they said, oh, yeah, don't worry, you're getting 20 minutes. So I didn't want to waste any time, so there was no gratuities. I mean, usually my pre-interview is like 15 minutes. So we kind of rushed through the interview, and she was very hesitant. I could tell right away she was hesitant into being as open as the film was about Yoko. She's still afraid of Yoko, too, you know, like a lot of people are. But it's still a good interview. You can find it in the Patreon. The film, I recommend 100%. What's it called again? The Lost Weekend, A Love Story.
A love story, apparently. And there's a trailer out there that you can find on YouTube. Apparently it's got, a Tribeca Film Festival official selection, okay, and a few other things. But, yeah, let's see. I was looking to see if it maybe won an award already, but no, not yet. But it was nominated for some awards and stuff. Looks pretty good. They got this... The thumbnail on the YouTube is a really interesting little picture of like Lennon, like, you know, with different looks on his face.
Oh, yeah, let me tell you, there's a lot of video footage in this thing you haven't seen before. Okay, like Julian, like a birthday party when he was a little kid running around this big estate, you know. Well, there's a lot of video in there you haven't seen before.
Nice. So, I mean, if you're just a Beatles fan, this is of interest. Plus, the May Pang story is kind of wild because, to my understanding now, again, you're saying she's a little nervous about talking about Yoko, but it was sort of like Yoko almost said, okay, I give you permission to go. Like, right?
Oh, no, yeah, that part, yeah. And by the way, too, that's Yoko's official story, to that whole thing about I give you permission to go. And Yoko told that story interviewing herself, where she videotaped herself asking the questions and then videotaped herself answering the questions. Okay, man. I'm afraid of people like that. I don't know about you. Plus, you know, she's related to Hirohito. Did you know that? And she went to like an old boys college. And then her and her husband. Wait a second. What is this? She had some kids with some guy, and then her and Lennon kidnapped the kids from the guy, and then they gave it back to the guy, and the guy had to run and hide in a cult for years. Yoko Ono's got crazy, crazy stories, man. There's a lot of reasons to be afraid of her.
Okay, I didn't know.
I'm recommending Fear, Chuck. I'm recommending Fear of Yoko.
You're recommending Fear of Yoko Ono. Okay, look, cool. I mean, I'm not gonna get nervous about it just yet, but maybe I will if I dig into it because it sounds pretty weird. So anyway, what is she hesitating about though? I mean, if that's all there is to it,
it was about the hypnotism in her story, and she told the story on my show, and they tell the story in the video that when John went back to visit her, she said, "Oh, I want you to come over. We're going to hypnotize you to quit smoking." And then suddenly John was saying, "Oh, Yoko's letting me come back. I'm going to move back with Yoko." And she really fleshes out that whole story. So there's that. One more thing, too, that I found out that I didn't know before is that she had been meeting with Lenin 5 years after that breakup. That they would get back together and have little rendezvous, as Mr. Bill Cosby used to call them. Yeah.
Kind of like secretly, little dagger, like, okay, don't let Yoko find out. But
right, little tryst, yeah, and for 5 years went on.
Hey, look, things like that happen, Seems like there might have been some love there. Okay, so now I'm getting the idea why they named the video that way. I mean, it's a love story.
Oh, no, it's a great film. Great film.
Okay, cool. No, and I will check it out. And I'll give you guys links in the show notes on Ochelli.com so you can follow through about the film. I'm going to give them a little promotion.
Chuck, another thing you might like in the Patreon too, as long as we're promoting the Opperman Report Patreon, as low as $3 a month, by the way, 10 cents a day. I put a lot of free stuff in there too. I have all those videos of Mike Lindell in that deposition where he's freaking out when they call his pillows lumpy. Did you watch those depositions?
No, I didn't know about that part. I go to the new release because I'm on your Patreon. Okay. And I go, I'm one of your patrons.
Oh, you really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm signed up. You'll find me there. I'm either signed up as Ochelli or the Ochelli Effect. I have 2 accounts with Patreon, but one or the other, I might be signed up as the Ochelli Effect. As a matter of fact, I know I'm signed up as the Ochelli Effect because they deduct it from my Patreon.
Right.
Anyways, yeah. So I didn't know about this stuff. Yeah, tell me about the extra stuff because I know you mentioned it.
No, I put a lot of free stuff up too. Okay, and like I said, all the depositions of Mike Lindell over his lawsuit with Dominion voting machines, and where he's freaking out at this deposition, throwing tantrums and stuff. And at one point, the attorney says, well, when people call you up to complain about the lumpy pillows, he freaks out. He goes, lumpy pillows? What do you mean lumpy pillows? But so I have all that up there. But I also interviewed the fellow just recently, Mr. Forget his name, Rob from Las Vegas, and he won that cyber symposium where Mike Lindell said, hey, if you can prove that my report here that he bought from a convicted con man, that there's any errors in this report, that there was tampering with the voting equipment there, I'll pay you $5 million. So my guest did prove it. He won, and now Lindell's trying to stiff him. As a matter of fact, I did that interview the day before Lindell went on TV and said that his lawyers all quit.
Oh, wow. Well, look, I don't usually do this in public, but I'd love to talk to that guy if he's willing.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. He's great.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from him just to get that story because I read about it and it was like, okay, so he offered $5 million and yeah.
And then now he doesn't want to pay.
And now he's not paying. Yeah, well, look, he wants to style himself after Trump. I mean, that's not Trump's MO. I mean, this is what the guy does. Okay, yeah, screw you, take me to court, and then he pays 48 cents on the dollar. I happen to know that figure from one of the cases in Jersey. But
I remember you told me, yeah. Chuck, another show I bet you would love. I just put it up. You might not have seen it yet. You remember Art Bell, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. So Art Bell did that story about Mel's Hole.
Okay.
Do you remember that Mel Waters? He was up in Washington State and he found this hole on his property and it was like 7,000 feet deep and all that kind of nonsense.
No, I don't remember that because you know what? The thing that sticks with me with Art Bell, biggest thing of all, is that the guy with the time traveler deal, the John Titor, whatever his name.
Right. Yeah.
That was crazy, but he had a whole bunch of stuff like this. Tell me about Mel's Hole a little bit. Go ahead.
Mel's Hole was this wacky story, and I play the whole call-in. Mel's Hole, Mel Walters was a guest, or Waters it might have been. He was a guest, and then there were callers in, too. So I play pretty much the whole thing, about 30 minutes of that. But my involvement with that, which I try to, insert myself into everything I can, is that I know the guy that wrote that story. And the guy who wrote that story was this crazy guy that was basically stalking Bell. On Alt Bell, Usenet, and used to call
message boards. Yeah. Okay.
You remember that stuff? Yeah, the Usenet boards. Yeah.
And in the mid to late 90s.
The late 90s, yeah.
Right. Like 97, I think, is my first experience with that. And you could go on there. I was on the JFK boards back then. That was one of the first things I got onto, and then I think other guys traded a homemade porno, like if you had naked pictures of your girlfriend, there was message boards for it. This is the wild days of the internet, and people would trade weird stories. I think that's where, like, creepypasta and all that, like, actually evolved from those message boards, right? Where people were trading, like, this is a true crazy story from my town, and urban legends got spread around. As a matter of fact, I'm taking a look at your Patreon now. Is this the one called Opperman Live? Is the Opperman Report a time travel portal?
No, but I think the Opperman Report is a time travel portal. Okay. That's one of my Friday Night Live shows where I talk about how I've predicted so much stuff, man. That's come right. I'm like 1,000%, especially, and that was last week. That's before I predicted. I predicted the night before Sidney Powell flipped that she was going to flip.
I want to that too. Well, look, you do predictions on Friday nights? That's what you do?
No. I'm not. I should. Okay. I'm the Gene Dixon of talk radio of 2024. But just that so many of my past shows, like I predicted Trump was going to go to prison, wind up in prison.
Well, listen. Wait. You're predicting Trump is going to go to prison?
I predicted that in 2015 during the primary that he was going to wind up in prison.
Gentleman's bet with you. I'll bet you $1. Okay.
Okay, you got it, man. Yeah.
I'll bet you $1. He does not go to prison.
Okay.
Okay, like seriously, and my time expires in 2025. If he doesn't go to prison by 2025, you mail me a crisp $1 bill.
Okay, to 2025, December 31st, 2025. Okay, I can do that. Yep. And also too, let's get this down correctly. Now, does that count contempt of court doing jail time?
No. You said prison.
Okay. No. Let's just get the facts down. Because I would also, if you want to double that bet, okay, I'll bet you $2 that he does a night in jail contempt of court. Before all this ends.
Now, see, I think that's possible. I wouldn't want to bet against that one. I think he could easily go for contempt, but I don't think prison time and actual sentence. Nope. No way. Matter of fact, I'll tell you what, if you want to go a double or nothing, I got a prediction for you, and I'm not good at predicting. I literally, I'm the guy who picked only twice correctly in my entire life a Super Bowl, okay? And that indeed does mean that I bet on the Bills, 4 times? Anyways, so, you know what I'm saying? The Buffalo Bills. Remember that losing streak they had? They would get to the Super Bowl and not win?
No, I'm not a football guy at all. No.
Okay, no worries. Yeah. Neither am I, but thus, it probably stands to reason why I didn't win. But anyway, I'll give you a $2 bet on he's actually going to be declared the winner in 24.
Well, that's a possibility too. Okay. I would give you that. That's a possibility.
All right, so we're stuck on the dollar, but you know what? Yeah. I stand by it. I don't think he's going to serve no prison time. No way. A night for contempt or violating his gag order or something like that. Yeah, he might get tossed in there because I think that would be advantageous to him. Because the way I see it is all of this has been advantageous to him up to this point. It's strengthened his core support, and I think it's actually extended the grievance factor when it comes to the GOP side of the equation. It's all about the grievance. Like, they do believe him when he says they're coming after me because they want you. And the whole place. It's a whole mess. But anyway, I'll do that $1 bet though, and if you can think of something else, we'll add to it. Okay.
Okay. It's a little running tally as the show goes on. Okay. I'll tell you about my time travel portal with Trump, though.
Yes, please.
The day after Princess Diana died, I was invited to the U.S. Open, David Dinkins Stadium there to watch the U.S. Open from a friend of mine.
Right.
And Trump was about 25 feet away. If I would have thrown a rock at him, I could have hit him with a rock. And everyone's supposed to be looking down at the tennis players, but Trump is looking up, and he's talking to these 2 young models. They were very animated, talking to Mr. Trump there, but every time I would turn my head, he was staring right at me. Okay, and I had never met him personally at that time whatsoever. I had no connection with Trump or anything. At that time, he should not have known who I am. Okay, unless time travel. Okay, because let me tell you. Okay, this is a time traveling portal. But what I thought it was is that one time I was out with some friends of mine, and there were a bunch of flight attendants, and they had one of those flight attendant parties, apartments in Manhattan.
This doesn't have anything to do with Bo Dietl, does it?
It does have to do with Bo Dietl. I told you the story before?
No.
Okay. It does. Bo Dietl's a monster.
Yeah, go ahead. Because, again, you and I were kind of in the same area at the same time during certain events, so I can imagine who would be. Which, by the way, I don't know if I'll tell you my Trump story too, which will take about a whole of a minute. But go ahead.
that said, well, "You'll never believe who's at our apartment tonight." And I said, "Who?" They said, "Marla Maples."
Now, this is the stewardesses said.
Yeah, because they had one of those stewardess apartments where people were coming and going all the time, and Marla Maples had just hit the press that Trump was cheating on Ivana, and Marla Maples had to hightail it out of her apartment because the paparazzi was following her around, and she went and hid in the stewardess apartment with 2 garbage bags of her clothes. That's all she had. So I made the joke with a straight face. I says, "Oh, well, let's go in there. We could tap the phones, and then we could sell it to the paparazzi. We could sell it to the National Enquirer." And they all got mad at me. "Oh, you're so cruel. Oh, this poor girl. How could we so mad?" I said, "Who's paying for this night out?" Me. I can make all the bad jokes I want. So wouldn't you know it, a couple of weeks later, I made the same joke to Bo Dietl. And I always assumed that it was Bo who ran to Trump and said, "Hey, Trump, you want me to keep an eye on this guy for you? He wants to tap your phones, blah, blah, blah." That's the typical thing he would do, you know.
I was just going to say, Bo Dietl would exactly be the guy who does that. Yeah, go ahead.
Give me a little bullshit $2,500 retainer. Yeah. And so I always figured when Trump was staring me down there at the U.S. Open that it was because Bo or someone had gotten to him. But now I don't know, man. I think it could be time travel, and he knows. You know, my work in the Epstein case, my work in the Trump and Epstein lawsuit. He knows I have 2 clients right now in the Stormy Daniels case. All my people put that Stormy Daniels deal together, so he definitely knows who I am now. I'm convinced of that. Keith Schiller, I've done jobs for Keith Schiller. Giuliani knows who I am, so I'm sure Trump knows who I am.
See, there you go. That could be the problem right there. I wonder if did
I ever tell you that story about the U.S. Intrepid?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's a good story, man. You'll like this because it involves Roger Stone.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Good.
It involves another guy we both know, but I'm not going to say his name.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sitting home, right, and I'm watching Trump's going to debate Hillary Clinton at the U.S. Intrepid. Now, the U.S. Intrepid is owned by a guy named Fisher Foundation, Fisher House. Okay. And Fisher is this rich guy in New York. He's a real estate rich guy, and he owns the Intrepid Museum. He commissioned the shuttle to come up part of the Intrepid Museum, stuff like that. And
he's got a bunch of stuff in the what they used to call the Garment District, right? I mean,
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but he donates money to 9/11 victims, military people and stuff, first responders, and he's got this, I would call it a fetish, where he would hire 100 cops in uniform to run these funerals for his friends and relatives, and show up with their bagpipes and their motorcycles and do all this stuff, and have 100 cops there, in formation.
So they give him like a police version of a military funeral kind of deal, and he hires them to go there in their uniforms and probably
he would hire them through Keith Schiller, and Keith Schiller later on went to work for Trump's head of security. Then he went to work at the White House, Trump's head of the White House there. He was somehow at a meeting in Iraq. Okay, with the military over there. Okay. So Keith Schiller knows who I am. I've done work for Keith Schiller. And Keith Schiller was pissed off at me and my partner when we went to a little business together because Keith Schiller had this business where he was controlling all the cops in New York City, and you couldn't dare touch on his little toes. Even with my little tiny business, I had nothing to do with this guy. Anyway, so Keith Schiller was working for Fisher House. He was working for Trump, and now Trump's down there at the Intrepid Museum to do this debate with Hillary Clinton. And who's there in the audience? Trump's guests. You got Paula Jones, Juanita Broderick, that whole bunch. Okay.
Oh, when he put those together, okay.
Right. Now, I know every one of those people. I've interviewed half of them. Me and Paula Jones had the same agent. The same agent, by the way, Gina Rodriguez, who's a witness in the Stormy Daniels case. You put the Stormy Daniels thing together, okay? All right? That's what a small world all this is. All right?
Yeah. You know Juanita, don't you know Danny's, what do you call it, Bill Clinton's black son, basically?
No, I never. I tried to get him on years ago when he was real popular, and he would just blow me off over and over. I forget who gave me his name. Oh, I know who it was. That guy, Robert Morrow. So, you got to talk to Danny Williams. I said, how do you pronounce his name? I just told you. You know?
That guy's a strange case anyway.
Yeah, I know.
Have you met him in person?
No, I haven't met him in person, but we've had, I've had him on the show. He did a great, he did the first show with me about Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, no, he's one of those guys though. He's kind of like he screams like this is what they didn't know was called autism before kind of deal.
Really?
He's like one of those shaky, nervous guys. Really, really quirky, odd presence if you're in a room with him. I've only been in a room with him once. I've interviewed him once on the show, but yeah, he's an odd one.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
He's an odd guy. Yeah, go ahead though. But Morrow's there.
Okay, but putting Bob Morrow aside for a moment, putting him on the shelf, Morrow on the shelf, the Intrepid Museum. So all these Bill Clinton mistresses are sitting around. And who else is there? Keith Schiller's there, Giuliani's there. These are all people who know me. So somehow my name must have come up in that group. Because I get a phone call from a guy, and he said it was on behalf of Roger Stone.
On behalf of
behalf of Roger Stone.
Yeah.
And he calls me up. He goes, Ed, I'm over here at the Intrepid Museum. Oh, this was the day after Kellyanne Conway. No, the day after the Grab 'Em by the Pussy tape came out. The Access Hollywood tape. This was the day after.
Everything's on fire then because, okay, so the Access Hollywood deal with the bus, and right, okay.
All this is going on, right? But what are they talking about? We need Ed Opperman. They called me up. They want me to give them Kathy O'Brien's contact information because they wanted to get a hold of Kathy O'Brien and get her in that room, too.
To get her in the little group.
Yes. Okay.
Which, by the way, depending on who it is, I mean, Roger Stone could have a variety of people that volunteer to do stuff for him. I don't know if you know about that little nexus of people, but interesting group of cats that he has coming and going there that, say they're his security, they're representing.
Oh no, yeah. I'm in with that whole bunch. I'll tell you about that. Okay. Okay, but the thing is, man. So what the guy says to me, he goes, "Yeah, that Access Hollywood thing. Kellyanne Conway leaked that because she's fucking CIA."
Oh, what?
That's what they was. This is what they were doing. This is what they were talking about. This is what was going on before Trump starts debating Hillary at the Intrepid Museum.
Oh, man. What a clown show.
Right?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, can you picture Kellyanne Conway working for the CIA?
I don't know, man. I've had people on my show. I found out later on they were CIA. I didn't think they were CIA at the time. I think a lot more people, not actual CIA agents full time, but or sponsored. An asset. Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, look, anybody could be an asset, okay? Because they'll utilize anyone. You can go through, if you look at what I refer to as the assassination guide. You ever read that thing?
I don't think so.
About Central and South America, where they talk about the people that they, like to recruit for certain work and all this kind of stuff. They give them indications of the types of people that they're fully willing to employ one way or another.
Oh, yeah.
In this guidebook, which is too funny because at a certain point it says, you should commit nothing to paper, and you're reading this off of a freaking handbook that they put to paper, right? It's really funny, but yeah. No, they're willing to employ anybody pretty much. It doesn't matter if it's criminals, lowlives, degenerates of any kind, paranoid guys that, actually paranoid guys, they recruited a bunch of them post World War II that were like these like lunatics that were like following everybody around and surveilling people in Germany that weren't even part of the Gestapo and stuff, that were doing it independently. The CIA was recruiting those guys. All kinds of weird stuff. You never know who they could actually attempt to recruit to use as an asset. So fair enough. But Kellyanne Conway does not strike me as an effective asset in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I tell you, also, too, George Conway, he was up to his neck in all that stuff. Kenneth Starr and the Starr Report. And who was that girl? The 19-year-old...
Well, he's one of those people that gets himself, like you were saying, you get yourself, invited to situations.
I'm trying not to anymore. I just quit a big job. I just quit a really big thing that's going to be on the news.
Oh, boy. Well, do you want to give me a hint or no?
Yeah, I can give you a hint. It's opposition research. Okay. On a sitting political candidate, a sitting political congressman. It's a huge sex tape, okay? It's a huge story. And I couldn't, for my own personal reasons and stuff like that, I discontinued my cooperation with this, but I did lay down a good road map There's a very competent young journalist involved in this, and a very prestigious publication. So there's no problem there. But my involvement, I had to back away. But I did leave a roadmap for them, so I will take credit in the future that I was involved. Okay, the next time I'm a guest on your show, I'll run the whole thing by then. Okay.
Yeah.
But
is it that it was too disturbing, or is it that it was just getting a little too close to people that are a little too greasy? What are we talking here? Kind of why you had to back?
Okay, I've been thinking about this. Okay. I'm older now, okay. I'm not the guy I was in 2018. And I don't know if I ever sent you. We were talking about the TV show at the beginning of that TV show. The clip, it says, "Hey, people come to me with their problems, and I fix their problems for them." Right. And I'm really, I'm half the man I was back in 2018. First of all, but the thing is too. Go ahead.
No, you look good on that tape. You look nice.
No, on that tape I look great. Yeah.
You look like you're like what they're trying to portray you as, and you come off as is. I'm
Batman.
Like,
they call me Batman in that thing. But the thing is too is I was in great shape back then. I was swimming 3 miles. I was hiking, all day long. I was riding my bike for. You
didn't strike me as coming from the League of Shadows, but here's the thing. It says to me that you're definitely like a rugged sort of PI guy who's willing to get a little bit down and dirty.
And I still am, But the thing is. In the past, okay, like with the Sarah Palin case, I had a client, okay? With the Epstein stuff, I had a client, okay? Pauly Sheen, whatever, Wienergate, all that stuff, I had a client.
You had a couple of clients with some of those things, but yeah.
Right, but so that, it's not a situation where, okay, if they take out Ed Opperman, the client's just going to hire somebody else, so I'm really not at that high risk. Mm-hmm. Where this situation here, there really was no client. It was me negotiating this for my own benefits, for my own, and it was just very uncomfortable doing that. Okay, and I don't think I'm up for it at this moment in my life. So I backed away from it, but I think the stars were all aligned, and I think that had I pursued it, we may not be seeing this chaos we see right now, okay, in the House of Representatives right now, which I'm taking perfect glee with, I said the other day that Matt Gaetz is a fellow who broke up with his high school girlfriend the night before prom, okay, because he fired Kevin McCarthy there with no replacement in sight, so he breaks up with his high school girlfriend with no date for the prom, and then prom night he went stag, but he fired the limo driver, so he has no ride home. Okay, so which is the same kind of stunt he pulled there with having no one to fill in for Kevin McCarthy there.
Yeah, well, he's that kind of guy. I don't need a plan. But it's odd because I would have thought, if it was going to be a sex tape, I would have pointed at a different congressman. But I'll ask you about that maybe off air. See what you got to say, because I'm not going to press you on it. You don't want to reveal it just yet.
Oh no, I can't. No, I wouldn't be allowed to do that. I can't talk about any of that stuff.
No, but yeah. I just want to throw something at you that I heard, through the grapevine. But we'll get to it. Anyways, so you're telling me about this whole thing with the Intrepid, okay, and that's really fascinating. Oh, my Trump story, I wanted to tell you real fast. You remember back in the time when Trump was working a lot with Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon was doing this, bodybuilding federation crap, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, they had this event in Atlantic City, and they had, like a press room and this kind of thing. And then there was another place, I guess, fans could meet the bodybuilders or something, right? It was like Vince McMahon's big next thing. Because he was Mr. Personal Bodybuilder too and all that. Anyways, I got invited there by some of the guys that work security, but not the group that's normally with Trump, like the adjunct guys that he would pick up locally. Okay, same group of guys that would handle, like, say, when the MTV Beach House came to a town, or that kind of stuff. That little group of guys. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is that they're not connected to Italian businessmen, but they are connected to Italian businessmen, right? They know them, but they don't really work for them. So there's this odd confluence in this private room that was had. There was like a closed off, not a dining room, but like a banquet room there, I guess, okay, at the Trump property. And I got invited to be in there. In this room, there's no press allowed, okay? And everybody's speculating whether Trump's going to come through there, McMahon's going to come through there. Trump himself walks in there. And I happen to be sitting with guys who I don't want to give out their name still. I can tell the story, but I can't give out their name. Anyways, let's just say these were guys who definitely would have known all about the cement stuff that I talked to you about years ago with Trump and everything, right? Okay. And they're just laughing at him. I got to shake Trump's hand. I never wanted to admit it on air. People ask me, hey, you ever meet him? Because you were, near Atlantic City. I never even wanted to admit this because I wasn't sure if I could even tell the story. But the joke was he walks away after, these guys are like snickering at him. And they're going, one thing I can guarantee you is this. He says to one of the guys that I knew said to me, one thing I can guarantee you is this. He'll never stiff us. He stiff everybody else, but not us. That I promise you. And I said, well, why? He said, well, you never read about it in the papers, have you? And then there was a comment about he could also, look, he realizes that I don't care who he is, he'll end up in a trunk. So we never get stiffed. Keep that in mind. That's what he told me. I said, okay. Anyway, I got to shake his hand, though, and his hands aren't that big. Just tell.
I believe that 100%. And I don't know if you've ever heard the John Tino story.
The name is familiar, but go ahead.
I think the author's name is Jeffrey Levine, and he wrote a book about Trump, and about Trump and his women and stuff like that. I had him on the show. And anyway, in the book, he talks about this fellow. His fake name is John Tino, and he used to run the massage parlors in Times Square, like in the early 80s. And Trump used to, according to John Tino, who was organized crime, that Trump would go in there and he would hook him up with this porn star, and Trump would go in. They'd call him Mr. Real Estate, and Trump would have sex with these porn stars. And he said that they were filming everything that was going on in there. And that one time Trump had a threesome with a porn star and a very young girl, like 12, 13 years old. Okay, with a girl there, and they have a film of that. Now, you hear these stories, okay? It's in a book. Mm-hmm. But what makes me believe it, there's a couple of things. When the whole Epstein thing broke, I forget when at one point, either when Epstein died or when he got arrested, the crap hit the fan. I was getting phone calls from everybody. Business Insider was going to my website, downloading the 24-page letter where Epstein said he created the Clinton Foundation, and I was being contacted. BBC interviewed me. I could probably find out if I look up that BBC interview. Yeah. But reporters would come to me, and they were kind of saying, hey, you don't believe that John Tino stuff, do you? And I says, well, what John Tino stuff? Of course I don't believe it. Like I'm trying to fit in, Right. I said, well, what John Tino stuff? And then when I interviewed the guy who wrote the book and mentioned the whole John Tino story, they wouldn't talk about John Tino.
Right.
I had him on. Then I had his co-author on. First I had the co-author on, and she says, oh, you have to ask the other author. He knows all about John Tino. He worked on that part. I was asleep that day. Okay? You have to talk to him. And he wouldn't talk about it either. It's in the book after the book was published, but that there's something happens, okay, a mystery, where suddenly people don't want to talk about something that's already in the book.
Right.
Money gets to them in some kind of ways because the woman went on vacation in France for months. I saw that. And somehow, and even, Dan O'Hanks, man, he talks about this. He says he worked for the tabloids at those times covering up stories for Trump. So he must know a lot of stuff.
Right. Well, look, there's the catch and kill angle, but there's also this other problem here because if you notice at a certain point, when they did the whole sweep and they cleaned out, Times Square and that whole area.
Yeah.
And, those massage parlors became a thing of the past because of Giuliani, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Not everybody got picked up or went to jail there. You know what I mean?
That is so true, yeah.
So if you pay attention to who didn't go to jail there, you can kind of see who got let go. You know what I mean? And I think that's what it's got to do with, because now I'm putting this together in my mind about something. I think it's related to that. Is that there were certain people that Giuliani was not allowed to touch.
Same thing with the strip clubs, too. They put those provisions on the strip clubs. They couldn't be close to a church or a school and stuff like that. And a whole bunch of strip clubs had to shut down, except for ones associated with a certain group.
That's right.
The bathrobe, right?
There you go.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly. That was the thing. And I can't track down. I mean, I know some people who should be able to tell me that, but they don't tell me that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's something about that where certain people were untouchable for a reason. And I think that has continued to go on, and they might have caught, instead of a pecker catching and killing that tape or whatever, it might have been caught and killed for Giuliani. You know what I mean? And for Trump. You know what I mean? Like, that thing comes together like, look, you let us operate and we got this. You know what I'm saying? One of those. Because that's the sense I get. I can't prove that. But that is the sense I get from the situation, because I've tried to tell people, go look at it for yourself and see who didn't have to lose their businesses, okay? He was on his crusade, right? He was shutting down porno stores. He was shutting down massage parlors. We're going to clean out all this filth. We're going to turn it into a family. You're going to come here for New Year's Eve. It's going to be this clean corporate place. The M&M store will be here, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And, they did that, sure. But take a look at who didn't get their stuff seized.
Wait, do you know that story about Giuliani and Leroy and Nicky Barnes?
I've heard it, yeah.
Because you can go on YouTube and you can listen to the recording. When Leroy and Nicky Barnes makes his phone call to the SDNY, and he says, listen, I want to cooperate with you guys because what's going on is, the guys out there are supposed to be doing things for me, but they're doing things against me. And what happened was his wife was out dating one of the guys that worked for him, so he sent some guys in there to kill him, and instead of killing him, they sat down and they drank and they partied with him. So Nicky Barnes gets all pissed off. He has nowhere to go. He goes to Giuliani's crew, SDNY, and he says, listen, these guys are supposed to be doing things for me. They're doing things against me. That's the only reason I'm coming to you. This is on tape. It's on YouTube. Anybody can watch it.
Wow.
The next day, 2 white guys go into that same nightclub and shoot the guys, Nicky Barnes' enemies.
No kidding.
And then who goes? Giuliani's out doing a press conference out in front of the nightclub. So don't worry, we're looking into this. We're going to find out who's responsible.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. That's interesting.
A lot of people know that story, man. Because, my partner, his dad was the cop who arrested Nicky Barnes for bribery. And that's a great story, too, but you got to let him have a couple of drinks to tell you.
Yeah, no, look, I would love to get into that. I mean, that whole thing fascinates me. It goes way beyond the American gangster film. You know what I mean? Yeah. With what went on there, and to tell you the truth, that's another thing that I've started writing my book, and I'm rewriting it with a co-author when I come back from Dallas. But there was a point at which I got introduced to one of the commission members when I was a kid.
Which one?
Yeah, well, he would be referred to as the heavier gentleman. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, all he was concerned with is, why is this kid here? And he wanted me to get something to eat. But that because I was a kind of like a gopher, like a mascot for one of these local wise guys, who, by the way, I still can't track down what his real name was. I called him Uncle Joey, and everybody referred to him as Joey, but that was not his legal name, and he disappeared at a certain point. A Jersey-based wise guy who happened to make trips into New York and happened to be in that, say, the southern part of Harlem, I believe, is what what he had control over. You know what I'm talking about? Anyways, yeah. So, right. The guy who would be referred to as fat. Put it that way. But anyway, there's a whole thing about the heroin moving in and out of Jersey and all kinds of stuff.
It's funny. I interviewed one of these DEA agents. I don't want to get the wrong one, but I think it was the one I don't think it was the one that was the cop behind the French Connection. I think I interviewed a couple that week. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I says, what about the CIA smuggling heroin and cocaine? Oh, no, there's no proof of that. Oh. There's nothing to see there. Then I better not say it. He tells me a story off the air about something happened. By the way, you talk about Catch and Kill, not to change the subject. Catch and Kill, that's my client, Keith Davidson, who was involved in that whole Catch and Kill with McDougal and Stormy Daniels.
Nice. Well, Ian, that's the next update I want to get. Yeah, but to tell you the truth, though, I mean, I was starting to do stuff like I learned really early how to cut heroin. Okay,
really?
And I didn't talk about this for a while, but I felt like it was the chapter in the book is called, look, the drug war has child soldiers too. Okay. And it all came out. I decided to talk about it because I had interviewed Ricky Ross. And, I talked to him off air a little bit about, hey, man, let me ask you a question. Didn't you find it strange that all of a sudden, like coast to coast, we all suddenly had the formula how to make Ready Rock? Like, it was just one of those things that sort of showed up for us. You know what I mean? It spread seemingly like simultaneously, even though people in California, talking to people in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, so on. How is it that we all knew instantly how to turn coke into rock? You know what I'm saying? Because that was the next thing I learned how to do when we were doing this in the basements of housing projects, okay? In rooms that we had set up with, we had clean rooms set up, okay? But the same rooms only a few months before, I was sitting there whacking up heroin. I was bulking out heroin, stepping on it, But it was just one of those things that I had a skill for. I could do it, and I could do it properly. And we were working with stuff. We were working with fentanyl back in '82, man. I don't understand why people are talking about this as new.
That's interesting. We're just talking to somebody else about this recently, and they were saying that fentanyl was around a long time ago too. And I was unaware of it.
No, it came to us, those of us that were there, breaking things down and for redistribution, right? We had that in '82. Fentanyl. It was readily available. It was cheap as hell too. People tell me that it's slightly different now, and I imagine it is, but we had fentanyl. Along with the other stuff, with the quinine and all that stuff. There's a whole bunch of different things. But I'm not going to give directions, and I'm not going to share the information or give somebody recipes here. But what I'm saying is this has been going on a long time. I found it interesting, though, that me and Ricky Ross could tie it down to like an exact month.
Oh, really? I interviewed Ricky Ross, too, a while ago. And I'll tell you something. I remember... I forget what year. I guess it was in the 80s. It had to be like after 1980 that I was getting the marijuana from the Yippies, and it used to be commercial Colombian, 350 a pound. Right. And then these guys are showing me this stuff that's 300 an ounce, And I took one hit off as like an LSD trip, and you could see the difference right away.
Oh yeah.
And I took some of it back to the guys on Staten Island who were the big shots, and I said, look what I have. I can get this for you. I can get you all you want. I can get you, truckloads of this stuff. Right. And he held up a $20 quarter pound, right? Quarter ounce. Mm-hmm. What's a $20 bag? Quarter ounce, right? Yeah. What would they call that quarter ounce?
Well, back then, I mean, look, you had eighths. Eighths usually were about $20 then, I think, right?
You sure? No, the $20 was it was $40 an ounce, but they used to call a quarter ounce something $20 and whatever. Anyway, but the thing is, he held up one and he says, Ed, look, you can have 40 joints here for $20, and you want to charge someone $20 for 5 joints? No one's going to buy that.
I was one of those kids selling joints for $1 back then.
So was I, yeah. So was I. I've rolled hundreds of thousands of joints, man. I was making 3,500 weeks in high school. But the thing is, it wasn't until 60 Minutes did a show, an episode about Hawaiian marijuana. Look at this Hawaiian marijuana. It's sensimilia. There's no seeds. It's exotic marijuana. And right after that, everybody wanted Hawaiian. And what did I have? I had this exotic sensimilia for $300 an ounce, and then everybody wanted it right away.
Some people were calling it the Maui Wowie or whatever.
Right. But this was from Mexico. Now, this stuff wasn't from
Hey, look, I just told you what they called it. I'm not telling you what they were.
No, there was Maui Wowie. That was real. But
I'm just saying they would call it that, and then the big thing all of a sudden there in about that time period was, no, this is the hydroponic. This is new. This is a new way of growing it. Remember?
Oh no, yeah, but that was real too. That stuff was powerful, man. When they started growing that stuff indoors. By the way, I just interviewed this guy. Wrote a book about Tom Forsyth, from the founder of High Times magazine. Right. I just interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. The book has Chaos on the title. I forget what it's called, but really interesting stuff. I found out a lot of stuff I didn't, and I knew all those guys. But by the way, you know what A.J. Wimmer told me?
What's that?
That he was at Allen Ginsberg's apartment, and Allen Ginsberg gave a BJ to George Soros.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
George Soros was hanging around with those guys.
I would have never known that.
I screenshotted it. What is it? As soon as I heard this,
Wow.
Is that a wild story? What? But we were talking about, because that was the same crew with Tom Prasad and all those guys, Yippie Headquarters down on 9 Bleecker Street, and Dialer Joint and all those characters. And I found a lot of new stuff. I found out a lot of stuff in this interview, man, I didn't know before.
Is that what Abby Hoffman was coming back into circulation over there? That whole thing?
Yeah, I was there the day he turned himself in, and my friend, I used to get my pot from Fred Gotbetter, who would get it from AJ, and AJ got it from the hippie mafia, Richard Stratton.
Okay.
And Richard Stratton's the one that brought in all that hash too. I sold a ton of that hash, man. Okay. And when the day Abby Hoffman turned himself in, all the press came down to Yippie Headquarters on 9 Bleecker Street, and the whole street was covered in press trying to get a story. And right. Fred was the Yippie spokesperson, so I says, hey, aren't you going to go talk to them? He goes, no way, I'm keeping a low profile.
Huh.
And you can look up Fred Gotbetter, man. I love this guy. He was a hero to me. He taught me so much. He died of heroin addiction. Like so many people in those days, and he got on that ergotamine. He was part of that ergotamine project that does reduce the cravings for heroin. Yeah, but what happens is, man, is you take one little hit after that, and it kills you. It's like you're.
Oh yeah, it's not like the blockers. You see, they have blockers today that just makes it so it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's different. That's different. Yeah.
But they used to have stuff that made you either violently ill or could kill you.
You lost your cravings, man. But then as soon as you took your what's that called? Your resilience to it. Your resistance.
Yeah, your resistance or your
that word. Yeah, but it's so reduced that you took one little hit of heroin, it would kill you. So he overdosed on heroin.
Oh, man.
I know, man. A brilliant guy, too. And everybody who knew him and talked about him loved him.
Well, look, and I saw the introduction of, and I didn't work with it. I never worked with the what they call meth today, But back then it was crank. And, yeah, that was another thing that was just, there were labs all over in Jersey. And not just in North Jersey either, but there was plenty in North Jersey. But there were labs all up and down the coast that it was a matter of going in and working with, I'll just give you, working with Salerno's people, okay, to get the heroin. Cocaine, I never knew exactly where that came from, except it was somebody out of Florida. That's all I ever knew about that. But it arrived, and we had to work with it, and we suddenly had the recipe for, base or ready rock, which later on people called crack, okay? But that stuff was in our hands around the same time, again, that that this fentanyl was. And that's why I was surprised when I saw fentanyl show up in legitimate, pharmaceuticals later. Because I wasn't aware of that until like maybe the early 2000s, and all of a sudden people were saying, yeah, they make these fentanyl patches. And like I wasn't in that business at that point, because I was doing that as a kid to survive. But by the time I'm an adult, I'm hearing about guys that are turning around and, getting, boxes falling off of trucks there with fentanyl patches in it. You know what I'm saying?
And they were strips, right? There's some kind of strips they call them.
And they would take them and they would actually take the fentanyl back out of the patch and put it in because it was like dirt cheap to do it. And you could put it back in. So the heroin supply in the early 2000s had some of this in it too. But it was this repurposed crap from the patches. And then somebody else. But we used to get that from, out of Philly. That was part of the trade that went on with the pagans, because the pagans got into the crank business, right? And so they were in the crank business. Crack was just everybody's game. And the heroin, like I said, you had to get it out of Harlem. I used to make many trips to Harlem. In my first trips to Harlem, I remember clearly, are in '78. I was 6 years old, first time going through there. It's a whole weird story. Anyway, but the point is that a lot of this stuff that people think is brand new is not new, and used to have much larger networks. Now, the reason why I bring all this up is because Nicky Barnes and all those people, that was all that stuff that was involved before, right? So it was sort of like still working off of the back of that and still getting whatever the Sicilians were getting out of that, wherever their supply was coming from, was massively supplying like the whole, Northeast pretty much out of Harlem. So anyway, it's just one of those things. But like I said, commiserating with Ricky Ross made me realize that, you know what, we all got the same information. It was like urban chemistry got shared simultaneously across the whole country. And it wasn't like, oh, of course, gangbangers talk to each other and stuff. I got nothing to do with gangbangers on the West Coast. But yet, the same month, I've got that information that somebody's teaching me how to do it in a basement in a tenement in Jersey that he's learning out there on the West Coast, except he was a smarter business guy. You know, I was just a kid. Mm-hmm. But he was, older than me, and he knew how to, organize business. He had it coming in so quick, he didn't know how to get rid of it. He was starting to set up distribution everywhere. You know the Ricky Ross story inside and out, right?
Well, not inside and out, but I had him on the show years ago, yeah.
Well, I mean, enough to know that what I'm saying to you sounds...
George Webb, yeah. Not George Webb, Gary Webb. Gary Webb, yeah.
Yeah, Gary.
Hey, you know what, man? Real quick, we've only got a couple minutes left. Sure. I would like to pay tribute to Daniel Hopsick, who just passed away, And the last interview I did with him, he really went into the whole Gary Webb thing, how much he admired Gary Webb, and what an influence it was on his life, too. And so we, Daniel Hopsicker.
Daniel,
all that stuff, Barry and the Boys, the Muhammad Atta's Flying Circus, all the work he's done on the flight schools down there in Venice, the 9/11 flight schools, all that incredible work, man. I tell you, when I learned about his work, and I read all his stuff before I ever did a radio show, I says, this is the kind of people I want to have on the show, And I had him on like the first 10 shows, and he had never done a show before. He had done one show, but he got spooked by them, that they were just so crazy. And he had done like one YouTube thing, So I got him early, man. We got him on the record, and then we became friends. I had him on like 10 times over the years. All great stuff, man. Looking into voting machines. The guy did great work. And we lost him this year, One of these old, reliable, sober characters, man, out there doing really good, hard reporting and taking the consequences for it. And he was sued many times, and he had brutal cancer at the end,
Mm-hmm.
So I just would like to, I've been asked a few times to go on shows and do a tribute to Daniel Hopsicker, and this is my first opportunity to talk about him.
No, look, great stuff that he put out, and you could argue with a lot of stuff, that anybody puts out, obviously. Yeah. But the truth is that, this is the type of thing that, guys like Doug Valentine have done great work on. And,
I just heard from him today, yeah.
Yeah, Daniel, how's he doing, by the way? Because he was not doing too well last time I talked to him.
And the problem, I'm trying to get him on the show, but the problem is I don't see him. Like right now, I don't have a camera on this computer with the microphones hooked into, so you have to do it with so he can read your lips,
Yes. Right.
Yeah, but he's written that great book that just came out. Let's plug it. The new book by Doug Valentine that just came out just very, very recently. I got a copy over here.
Okay. You looking to see what the title is?
Yes, I am, because I have a very bad memory. Okay. Yeah. Valentine Mice. Oh, no, not that one. Pisces Moon, The Dark Arts of Empire. And, he was just contacting me today talking about this. I know you don't want to talk about it either, but this Israeli genocide going on and how this is textbook Project Phoenix, And,
okay, so that's the, Places Moon, that one?
Pisces Moon, The Dark Arts of Empire, yeah.
Yeah, blind guy trying to read on the fly.
Yeah.
Pisces Moon, dark, what is it? Let's see, The Dark Arts, let me click on this thing and go to it. The Dark Arts of Empire, right, by Doug Valentine. That's the new one, huh?
Yep, that's brand new, hot off the press. It just came out
Yeah. Well, no, I was just mentioning that, stuff by him, Powder Burns by Sally Castillo. I mean, all this stuff on the drug war is extremely important. What do you call it? Daniel got into the Hassenfuss story and all that too, right?
Which one? Not the which Hassenfuss? The
CIA pilot guy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I'm just saying. I mean, this is a guy who was doing a lot of work for a long time on stuff like that. And I would just say, if you're familiar with Ricky Ross and Sally Castillo and Doug Valentine, you should also be familiar with Daniel's work, right?
Now, is Castillo still alive?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, because I was supposed to get him through Danny Romero. Is Danny Romero still alive?
far as I know.
Okay.
But if you want Selly's number, I give you Selly's number.
Yeah, I think I text his number. I called his number. I left it for him. But if you want to put in a little recommendation for me there, you know who I can get for you if you want?
Who's that?
QAnon Shaman.
You know what? I would talk to him. But let me just ask you this: is he still like committed to that whole thing? Is he still like all in?
Yeah, he is. He's a nice guy though, man. He's a sincere guy. He's crazy. You know, I asked him a question about a wolf or something like that, or and he went on forever. He went with the Yellowstone. He went on forever. Okay.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's funny because he came on my show, and he says, "Yeah, I'm still for Trump," because it says in his Wikipedia he had abandoned Trump, and his lawyer said he was no longer supporting Trump. He comes on my show, he says, "Oh no, I'm for Trump." 3 months later, TMZ, QAnon Shaman still for Trump. No mention of the poor Ed Opperman. No, just the Rodney Dangerfield of radio. Gets respect.
I was going to say before, this happens to you a lot, doesn't it?
No, man.
There's been a bunch of times where, like, I remember more than a couple years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, you were on my show and you mentioned something. And the next thing I know is, like, maybe a week later, it was this breaking headline.
I know.
And, like, you were, like, sending me a text on Skype, like, damn it, you see this? Look at this. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, you mentioned that on my show, like.
Yeah, I had the Bill Clinton mistress came on and said that Hillary Clinton had an abortion, or maybe it was 2 abortions after Chelsea was born, and then Rush Limbaugh says it, and then he has it. It's kind of not mine anymore. Yeah. Another one was Joe Scarborough was talking about my Steve Bannon porn and meth house, about the padlocks on the inside of the house. No one talked about that before I had it.
And stuff, right? The Bannon stuff was this one time too with you, where it was like, wait a minute, you just told all this stuff on my show, but like, and it was like a month later before before it was like, oh look, according to it was like, no, not Breitbart, what do you call it, the other guy, the guy who never changed his stuff and died, the guy who still got like the 1995 version of his website up, what's his name?
Pat Drudge?
Yeah, Drudge. It goes on Drudge, and they're like, Drudge revealed, and I'm like, Drudge revealed? Opperman had it on 3 weeks ago. What are you talking about?
Well, like I said, we did the first show on Epstein, man, with Robert Morrow. That's the only guest I could find that even knew the name Jeffrey Epstein back in 2013. Nobody knew the name.
That's something that I was talking to just real fast, because that lawsuit is still ongoing, right? And I saw a settlement not too long ago with the banks and all this. And I got Pierce Redmond on, and we were sitting there talking about you, actually, and saying, you know what, if it wasn't for like Ed Opperman, I would have never known about this. And then it becomes this massive headline, and I'm waiting for Opperman to pop up on TV next, because he had all this stuff that they're like digging around going, oh, we found out about this. And I'm like, yeah, I knew that. I know that woman's name. They're like, we know for the first time. Here's a victim showing up at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial and all this other stuff. And I'm going, all these different, documentaries and everything coming out. Nobody went to Opperman. What's going on?
That's a good question. It makes you wonder, right? What was I going to say? But let me tell you something. Stephen Hoffenberg, who was Jeffrey Epstein's original partner back there at Tower Financial, and it was a scam. It was a Ponzi scheme, but he was left holding the bag. Everybody else skated. Rudy Giuliani was the Tower Financial corporate attorney, paid $1 million a year. You can Google from night and day. You're not going to find that anywhere on Google. But Stephen Hoffenberg wrote that check, and Stephen Hoffenberg told me that information on tape on my show several times. So there's no doubt about the accuracy.
Well, that's the wild thing with you is, like I said, you're always ahead of the curve, which, by the way, if you were to be able to get to Dallas, in November from the 17th to the 19th, because I really hope that you're going to post this on your Opperman feed. You can put it on Patreon, whatever you want to do with it, because it's going to be a free show out to my listeners as well. But if somebody's in Dallas and they want to come meet me, I'm going to be at the JFK Lancer Conference from the 17th to the 19th, and I'm promoting that all this month. I've got some interesting guests. I'm going to have John Newman on this coming week, and I've had plenty of interesting guests recently about it. But I'm going to be the MC of that conference and kind of running breakout rooms, panels, the media room, all this stuff going on, because it's the 60th anniversary of the execution of John F. Kennedy there in public in Dallas, Texas in 1963. and also happens to be the 10th anniversary of the Ochelli Effect. So I'm going to be giving out goodies for anybody who comes in to support and meet me there at the conference. Hell, if you want to meet me outside the conference, get in touch with me. And if you just happen to be in Dallas, I'll sign something for you or get you an Ochelli Effect hat or whatever. If you're a supporter of the show or you're somebody who's, interested and wants to go check out the conference, by all means, come on in and do that, because there are loads of speakers going to be there, and I'm going to be introducing everybody. And again, there's going to be panel discussions. Like I said, John Newman will be there, a whole bunch of other guys, some well-known, and the youngest guy I've ever seen give a presentation, a guy who's 14 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm actually satisfied is well-versed in the photographic evidence in the case. That's a rarity right there. I'll tell you that. And the youngest presenter I've ever seen at a conference, a 14-year-old guy named Alex Harris, is going to do a presentation there on the Dallas Cinema Associates film. But anyway, a lot of interesting stuff coming up there. There's a lawsuit still ongoing with the Biden administration regarding the JFK records and the crap that we've been handed so far and all that documentation we've been through. Just wanted to let your listeners know that, and, of course, remind mine once again.
Well, wait, explain to me again. It's called the Lancer?
JFK Lancer. It is a conference. It's the 27th conference that's been held by JFK Lancer, and it'll actually be at the Lorenzo Hotel in Dallas, Texas, from the 17th to the 19th of November. So that's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'm taking a road trip there. And if anybody feels like chipping into my well-being as I go and all that, yeah, I still need gas money and everything, but supporting the network will also allow me to do stuff like get some special presentations. I'm planning on filming stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's a lot going on there.
Well, and how would people, if they wanted to support this, how would they do that?
Oh, yeah, well, they can go. They can sign up for either. If you're not going to be in Dallas, you can actually sign up for a virtual conference as well. You and I'll exchange links, but if you go to jfklancerpublications.com, I believe, I'll double check that real fast while I'm talking to you. But yeah, jfklancerpublications.com. You can get there. I'll give you a link, Ed, if you want to include it with your show notes, whatever, when you decide to post this. Okay, I'd be real grateful.
I promise you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make an announcement right now. At this JFK Lancer conference, okay, if you want to meet Chuck Ochelli, I will be lurking on the grassy knoll, okay? And you can come there and look for me. If you find me, you will get a prize. How's that? Okay, what's the date for this Lancer thing again?
17th to the 19th.
Of November.
Of November, that's correct. And it's, jfklancerpublications.com is where you can go. And, there's and it's 3 days, like I said, and there's a lot of Brent Holland, Bill Simpich, Bart Camp. I'm listed there. David Boylan, Larry Hancock, a whole bunch of researchers, Stu Wexler, Vince Palmera, Robert Nelson, Rob Clark, Rex Bradford, so on and so forth. A lot of people, if you know the case.
Well, let me say this. I just interviewed somebody recently who mentioned the JFK Lancer and jfklancerpublications.com, okay? And it was either John Hankey or it was that fellow who wrote that book about the fuzzy picture of Oswald in the doorway.
Yeah, Bart Camp would be that.
Bart Camp, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And John Hankey was on your show recently. I think Hankey at one time presented at Lancer a long time ago.
So it's Bart Camp, okay? I just had Bart Camp. And that was a great show, too. And a very interesting book. This guy's got he's counting the hairs on the head of this fuzzy Bigfoot photo in the background.
Well, he's doing a presentation at Lancer on this topic, and I plan to ask him questions, and I'll be introducing him. So there you go. And I just gave you a link there to the JFK Lancer conference. Like I said, if you look on Facebook, it's there too, and I'll be tweeting about it and putting it out on Facebook all the way up to when I hit the road on the 15th, because I'm going to be driving with my Friday night co-host there. We're going to drive there from Georgia here to Texas. So not sure how long that takes, and obviously I won't be doing the driving.
Texas is a big state, man. It takes a long time to drive through Texas.
It does, but I don't know. He seems to think we can do it in 12 hours from Macon.
That's about right. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
So,
too bad, man. If I would have had more notice, I would have maybe take a road trip with you there, too. That would have been fun.
Listen, Loved it. If you feel like it, I mean, we could sort something out. Let me know off air. Think about it. Whatever.
It would take a miracle. And I just had a big job. I could have made some big money the other day, but didn't go through. So JFK Lancer Productions, November 17th to the 19th. Meet Chuck Ochelli. Look in the grassy knoll, but you might spot Ed Opperman. You have to look carefully.
And here's the thing: if you go there and you tell me that you showed up from this show or whatever, guaranteed I'll give you something for free. Bumper sticker, pen, something. I have T-shirts, a few other things with me.
Fentanyl?
For free. No fentanyl. No.
Fentanyl? Okay.
No, that would be something I
no
did.
Fentanyl.
A young boy, and I was just trying to to the insane adults around me. So that was something I did as a kid. Okay, it's just.
I hear you, man. I hear we all do.
We all have a past, Ed. What are you working on currently that you can talk about in public, though? Anything you want to remind my listeners about?
Not really, but I did want to say one last thing about Hoffenberg. All this litigation you see in the Virgin Islands, none of this, all this suing these banks and J.P. Morgan and all that crap like that, none of that would be happening if it wasn't for Stephen Hoffenberg, who initiated all of that, man. People only realize what this guy did.
Even lawsuit in the Virgin Islands, because that's a weird situation where they're going after, I read it. The way I read it is, I mean, you got two banks now have settled for something like, what is it, $75 million or something, right?
Well, yeah, but even before that, though, that's where the Epstein Trust was. It was down in the Virgin Islands, right. And the Virgin Islands, Denise George went after that trust, and there was so much corruption, man. Okay, look up the Butterfly Trust, where these guys, Darren Endyke and Richard Kahn, they had because they're the executors of this estate, and they had their wives set up the Butterfly Trust and get paid $10 million. Okay, all of this is out in the open. All of this is known by all the prosecutors down there and stuff like that. They all got their little hands in the pie. And then the whole big story about how Biden went down there Christmas week and suddenly Denise George was fired. No, that wasn't about that at all. Okay, it was about money. All that stuff was about money. But anyway. And then later on came these J.P. Morgan. By the way, J.P. Morgan Chase is the company that runs the food stamp, these EBT cards. Okay, that when they get a cut of every EBT transaction, and they're still allowed to do that after they've been openly caught here fronting for Epstein, and nobody says a damn word about it.
Yeah, well, what they handle there is the Department of Agricultural credit system, which is technically not money. That's the weirdest thing about it, right? Is that it's technically not money, but somehow it turns into money. It's really fascinating, right? And J.P. Morgan is intricately involved.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I can understand maybe the agriculture department can do that, but how do they have a private industry create money and then profit from it? That's insane.
Yeah, they're creating money out of a credit applied from the Department of Agriculture. I mean, and nobody questions it. It's the most bizarre thing. Just if it's running normally, no Epstein, no nothing, you should be questioning this. Why does this way? And also for listeners of the Ochelli Effect, if you go to patreon.com/Opperman Report, all one word together, Opperman Report, and Opperman has two P's in case you were wondering. It's not the Opperman Report. Patreon.com/Opperman Report. Go there, sign up. Guess what? I am a patron there. And definitely agree that Ed's work needs to be heard, and it's cheap. I think I'm signed up for like $3. Okay. Just saying, I don't have a big budget for stuff, but it's well worth it. You plunk down even $3, you're going to get plenty out of Ed's Patreon. And look, buy his books, go to his website. OppermanReport.com is still running, right?
Oh, yeah. And like I said, so even on Patreon, there's a lot of free stuff. I put up free stuff all the time, court documents and all stuff. Tons of free content on there, too. So just check it out whenever you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I recommend it highly. And, of course, not just because Ed's my friend, but he's often in the middle of a whole lot of some people call it shenanigans, but sometimes it is shenanigans. Sometimes it's very serious work.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Sometimes it's it's awfully greasy. And like I always say, though, I'll tell you what, if I ever end up in a divorce court, though, and somebody hires Ed Opperman in opposition against me, I'm going to be really, really pissed, and I'm going to give up, first of all, because hell of a private investigator, hell of a podcaster, and happy to call him my friend. So, guys, no matter who you are, where you are, when you are, I want you to remember that I am merely Ochelli, and all of you are the effect. Take care.